Good morning, Christian. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Can you hear me? Can you hear me too?
Yes. Looks
Perfect.
like we're in the air.
Okay. I think we have now 40 participants. I suggest we'll wait 2 minutes and then we can start.
Yeah, it's going up. So let's wait a minute so everybody can join the meeting. Still going up.
Yeah. I suggest we should start. Good morning.
Yeah, let's start.
Sorry?
Yeah, let's kick off.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Microsoft WVD webinar. Before we start, we'd like to share some household rules for this webinar. Which are, we kindly encourage you to ask questions. And if you have any questions, please ask them via the chat or during the Q&A at the end. We kindly ask you to please turn off your camera and microphone. The presentations and also the recording will be shared afterwards for you to check it again, or maybe if you miss it, you can see it afterwards. Next slide, please. Before we start, we'd like to do a short introduction of ourselves. Benno, could you start with a short introduction of yourself, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Christian. Hi, everybody. I'm Benno Rummens, IT architect with Login Consultants, which is part of the Basefarm Group. Working for the past 20 years in the endpoint user, endpoints, and desktop solutions area, mainly focusing on Microsoft. And the last couple of years, I'm fully focusing on the Azure platform, including the WVD environment, which is now a hot topic in this area, and that's why we are all here. So that's me. You, Christian.
Yes, thank you. I'm Christian Levin. I'm Business Development Manager within Login Consultants. Login Consultants is part of the Basefarm Group. My background is in IT consultancy, and since the last 5 years, I'm on the business development side, so on the sales side, advising customers and helping them to achieve and deliver the best end-user computing environment for the end users. Next. So, like we said, Basefarm and Login Consult is a company, is a partner company, or is a company of the Basefarm Group. And together we are a trusted partner for your digital workplace transformation on the digital workspace and also on the cloud. So we deliver the whole life cycle of the backend and the front end of the IT infrastructure to our customers. We created an agenda for this meeting. We first like to start with what is Windows Virtual Desktop. Then we go to the to how can Windows Virtual Desktop help you as an organization. Where does Windows Virtual Desktop fit in the Microsoft Modern Workplace architecture? We will give a technical overview and a short demo of Windows Virtual Desktop, and also how to get started. So if you want to provision or provide or implement WVD within your organization, how to get started. And last but not least, we will have 15 minutes for questions and answers. Next slide, please. Okay, there it is. Yeah. So to start with, what is Windows Virtual Desktop? Windows Virtual Desktop is a cloud-based VDI running on Azure. So it's a desktop, a virtual desktop, which is accessible from anywhere on any device, running on Azure, and you can provision published desktops, so you can provision full desktops to end users, but it's also possible to provision virtual apps, so you can also provision separate apps to your end users, which you can publish, for instance, on your Windows 10 devices. So what does Windows Virtual Desktop do? It enables working from anywhere on any device. Now, just to in the current times, in the COVID times, you see a lot of employees are working from home. And with Windows Virtual, you can enable them with the virtual workplace, which they can access if they are at home or in the office or in other buildings, or it doesn't matter where you are. You can work from anywhere with your Windows 10 virtual desktop or your Windows virtual applications. It is secure. It secures your user data. Since your data is not local on your device, all the data is secure within the Azure cloud and is managed by the Microsoft security components like Azure Security, etc. But it also you can also add a Microsoft Endpoint Management and Microsoft Intune to applications and to provision extra security, etc. It deploys and scales within minutes, which means you can start small, which is really benefit of WVD, and you can scale down and you can scale up, and it also scales really quickly. So you can scale it on the demands of your company. If you, for instance, are a company which has a lot of seasonal workers, you can scale up during the time there are a lot of users, and you can scale down if there are not so many users anymore. And last but not least, it reduces cost and modernize practices. This means reducing cost. If you want to provision a Windows Virtual Desktop in a standard traditional way, you will implement it in your data center. You need to buy hardware, etc., and data center capacity to deploy Windows Virtual Desktop. Within Azure, it's all based on OpEx. You can turn it on and then you pay for it, and if you turn it off, you don't receive any bill for it. So it really helps you to scale up, scale down, and to reduce cost, and also to modernize practices, and which means you can add WVD as a part of the Windows Microsoft 365 strategy, so you can deliver a modern workspace with legacy applications, for instance, provisioned by WVD. Next slide, please. So how can organizations benefit from Windows Virtual Desktop? Like we said earlier, it's a perfect way to enable remote work from everywhere, anywhere in a secure manner, and it's really easy to set it up and to provision it to your end users. Scaling and capacity issues, it also helps you to grow within your current environment. Like you have, you can scale up in the cloud, and you don't have to buy any capacity like hardware, etc. You can also, it's financial, it's based on an OpEx model, which give a lot of benefits. Security and compliance, it's secure, it's compliant, it's in the Microsoft data center. All your data stays within the Microsoft data center, no local data available. So it's really secure and compliant with your company's security measures.
Okay, I'll take over from here. Thank you, Christian. I will do the next slides within this presentation. I will also do, I will talk about the technical bits and pieces of a WVD environment. First of all, we start off, where does WVD fit in the modern workspace architecture? Where do you position WVD within your endpoint solutions and in your for your end users? So first of all, WVD is a centralized cloud-enabled virtual workspace. It's a native cloud solution. It's built in the cloud and it runs in the cloud, which means it is available from anywhere. So it doesn't run within your own personal data center. And that can be beneficial because it's available all across the world without any latency issues, etc. Because all the Azure data centers are worldwide available. Furthermore, we see WVD as an integrated extension to a Microsoft Modern Cloud Workspace. I'm talking about, for example, a Intune managed endpoint. That is a Microsoft Modern Workplace, but an endpoint that is managed by Microsoft Intune is not joined to the local domain anymore. And there WVD comes into place. It integrates into your endpoint, which is managed by Intune, and can still deliver the next one, legacy applications on a modern managed workplace. So if you still have that old legacy application that needs connectivity to the old domain, you can provision that service via a WVD environment. And then, for example, I'm talking about a remote application. And I will show you that later in the demo as well. And of course, you can also see WVD as an extra security layer on your modern workspace. Because it runs within the data center, you can add tools like multi-factor authentication, network security layers, firewalls in between the application or the desktop services that you want to provision on that modern workplace. And that can be very beneficial if you have an application that is you need to which is security aware, or you basically are required to add some extra security layer on top of it. And of course, it's easy to access, and you can easily access the services, and it's also easy to manage it because it's running from the same central Azure cloud. So that's how we position the Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop environment within a modern workplace architecture. So going to the next slide, we go into a technical overview. How does it look? This is basically an introduction to WVD. And as mentioned before by me and Christian, WVD runs on the Microsoft Azure platform. And what does it use from the platform? It uses the identity, the compute power within the data center. Storage is available from there, and it uses the network part of the whole Azure platform. One second, I'll just... And within that data center of Azure, you run your own subscription. And within that subscription, you can run still Windows 7 Enterprise host machines. And we still have, I think, 2 years left of support within WVD, which is a nice feature if you still have services running on on Windows 7. You can move it to Windows Virtual Desktop, and you still have 2 years left of support on Windows 7. Furthermore, it runs Windows 10 Enterprise and Windows 10 Enterprise multi-session. This is only available within a Windows Virtual Desktop environment, and is only you are only allowed to run it within here, within WVD. The big advantage of Windows 10 is it presents you the same look and feel as everybody is accustomed to on their local machines as well. So the adoption is pretty fast for most users. But still, you can also run an old Windows Server 2012 R2 and up, so a server OS. So you can move your current RDS, Citrix, or VMware load over to WVD as well, if you want to. And of course, it provides you the ability to publish remote apps. And from your subscription, how do you get access? You get access by the WVD service. I call this the WVD service, which is managed by Microsoft. And this service contains basically the web access roles, the management roles, the broker roles, gateways, load balancing. And a new one added, if you compare to an old RDS environment, you also now have a diagnostic role within the whole service. If you still build a RDS environment, a Citrix or a VMware environment in your own data center, you still have to manage all these roles yourself. This is now a service managed by Microsoft, and you don't have to do anything with it. The only thing what you need to manage is your subscription and your host service. So how do you get access to this whole environment? Via a client provisioned by Microsoft. They have remote desktop clients for all big vendors, Windows, Apple, Android, and of course an HTML5 web client, which is can be installed on most hardware available. So in a nutshell, what is a native Windows Virtual Desktop environment? Basically, it utilizes the Azure virtualization infrastructure based on Microsoft. It's the Azure platform. It also utilizes the Azure Active Directory Identity Management Service, which is key in all services for Microsoft. Yeah, identity is the core of your where you build your services around, and WVD is one of those services. And the Windows Virtual Desktop virtualization infrastructure is a fully managed service. You don't have to do anything on that service. The only thing you have to do is deploy and manage your VMware host in your subscription and connect to it. So that is the native Windows Virtual Desktop structure. But if you look at the history of virtual desktop and application solutions, we used to have a remote desktop services, RDS services for Microsoft that runs on Windows Server 2012, even lower, 2008 and up. On those services, Citrix and VMware built their own proposition and added a lot of value to those remote desktop services. And these three together used to be the big vendors for virtual desktop solutions. And now Microsoft has built Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop, and it's basically a fourth player within the virtual desktop solutions area. And you have to think about what fits your environment. But the cool thing of Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop doesn't mean it stands on its own. It's of course, a cloud solution, but you can also combine Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop with Citrix as an add-on or VMware as an add-on. Citrix and VMware can provide value add to a WVD environment. Say, for example, you would like to run a Windows 10 multi-session or Windows 7 within your Citrix or VMware environment. You can add WVD to your Citrix or VMware environment and still use the Windows 10 features available. So what kind of benefits you have more with the combination of these two solutions? For example, with Citrix, You can provide what I already told you is the Windows 10 experience on Azure. But if you would like to centrally manage a hybrid deployment, say you have workloads within your own data center and you want to have workloads in WVD, a Citrix solution on top of it could be your solution for your virtual app and desktop services. And of course, Citrix is a partner of Microsoft, and they integrated their solutions fully with Windows Virtual Desktop. Not only Citrix, VMware basically does the same. VMware and Citrix can do the same solution with their own value-added services on top of it. So that's the Windows Virtual Desktop in combination with Citrix and VMware. But the cool part of WVD services, it's a global service. This is just a map of the current data centers of Microsoft. So that's the power of a WVD environment. Do you have customers or clients in West US or somewhere in Australia or China or in Europe, all across the world? You can basically place all your WVD hosts in the closest data center to avoid latency to your endpoint users, and that's a big advantage of a Windows Virtual Desktop services that runs on the Azure platform, and which is really easy to configure as well, because you can run any subscription in any data center with just a click of a button. So that's just in short what WVD is, how the technical bits and pieces are working together. And of course, we would like to show you a small demonstration on Windows Virtual Desktop as well. So what I would like to show you is show you a bit of the cloud and infrastructure, some security and management solutions I have in place, application and imaging, automation and accessibility option, and of course the Windows Virtual Desktop roadmap. Okay, you have 1 second. I'm just going to go out of the presentation and I'll go to Azure. I already started up the Azure portal. For some people, maybe it's already very how you call that, a standard picture or a normal working environment for most people, but for a lot of people it's still newer and they're not really into the Azure portal yet. But basically, if you log on to Azure, this is the first screen you log into, to your home screen. My home screen looks like this, and from here you can basically go to your Windows Virtual Desktop environment, or you have a direct link in the top of the window. So Windows Virtual Desktop looks really similar to RDS. RDS, for the people that know it, used to have a collection. Collections are called host pools now. On top of the host pools, you have application groups where you define your applications, and all those host pools are joined together in workspaces. And you have an area for the users, all the users that are currently logged on to the environment. This is just a test and demo environment. So it's not a fully production environment, but here I can show you just a small glimpse of how it looks like. So first of all, you have the host pool area. I've got a couple of host pools here. This is the ABN AMRO Bank demo environment, and here I've got the WVD environment. And for example, if I go to remote apps, I have a remote app environment which basically publishes only remote apps, a remote desktop production test, and a VDI environment. So this is how it looks. It's basically shows you the whole environment, and what I mentioned everything is built on the Azure platform. So from here, I also have the identity and access management. So here is the first security layer already available. So who has access to this pool? And you can assign all sorts of roles assignments to your pool. And here there are no assignments because it's a test environment. Oh, wait a minute, sorry, it was still loading. Here you see who has access and who doesn't have access to that pool environment. You can use tagging through the whole Azure platforms. You can assign tags, so you can basically order your resources within the whole Azure platform. There's a diagnostic option to see if there are any problems within your pool, and you can do some troubleshooting from here as well. And it's all based on the same Azure platform. You in any place within Azure, it looks kind of similar. Going to really RDP properties, you have the availability of adjusting the RDP properties just from the portal, and it's all basically accessible from the portal. This area will give you the pool settings of your personal desktop. Do you want to start the VMware on Connect? Is the validation environment yes or no? You can give it a different name. Change the load balancing rhythm. Within WVD, you have the breadth first and depth first options. Basically, meaning breadth first is it within the pool, if users will log on to the environment, this pool will spread all the users evenly over all the available session hosts. And if you choose depth first, it will first fill up all the first session host until it reaches the maximum limit of users, and then it will start the second session host and will start filling up that option, which could be a solution for you to save money, because if you a running host means Azure credits, and Azure credits you have to pay for. So if you don't use all the resources, it's better to turn it off in Azure, which can be a quite of a cost saver. Normally in a on-premise environment, you have the ability to run an environment 24 hours a day. In Azure, that's not recommended. You need to be careful with your resources, otherwise you get a massive bill. Okay, we talked a bit about the session host. Here you have a session host area where all the session hosts are located. This is a test environment which only contains one session host. And this session host publishes a remote desktop and a remote app. And of course, which is exclusively now also to WVD, it fully integrates the new MSIX packages solutions. I don't have any packages configured here, but I do have it in this test environment. With MSIX packages, you can add a new way of packaging methods, which is basically kind of, they call it app attached, and you can also think about app layering. You don't really install the application within the Windows 10 image, but it is attached to the Windows 10 image. Windows 10 thinks of it as a fully installed application, which means if you repackage all your applications to MSIX packages, you don't really need to build like a golden image anymore and install the applications within your Windows 10 environment. It has two applications here, and I will show you later how that works. Okay, this is a bit how the pools work. Here you define the application groups. Application groups basically tell you which applications are published. If you could go to this environment for the remote app, you have a, where is it? Here are the applications. I've got a app published here, and I will show you if you have the client. This is the remote desktop client. You will see here a Word application. It's really easy to add an additional application. If it's installed on your host machine, you can see here, okay, I would like to publish Excel to this pool. It already defines it for you. And if I save it, it will add the Excel feature here. If I refresh it here, that will be done automatically within every 15 minutes and when you log on. Okay, you will see here a pop-up. It's the first time I'm logging in. And this will show you also the security layers of Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop. It uses the Azure platform, so the identity of Azure, and I can choose the identity I would like to log on with. Now I've got multiple identities here, and I'm selecting this WVD or this identity, and you have multiple options of securing the whole environment. So the machine is a bit slow because of the presentation. And here I can just log in with a username password, but it's also available, for example, to sign in with a security key. I've got a security key here like this, and I configured a YubiKey here. And if you want, you can do a full with MFA authentication on Azure. So if I press in the pin of my security key here, and I need to touch the security key, it will automatically log me in without any username or password. So these are solutions that are really beneficial to banks. We see it a lot here in the Netherlands that banks are using these kinds of passwordless authentication. Okay, I just added the Excel options here, and now I can start Excel just from the desktop. So you see it's available here, and it will start on the background on the server. And there it goes. This is the second password. I haven't configured SSO yet here, but you can install SSO as well. And the application that just I think I started it twice. So I just add the Excel from the cloud, and it's directly available for my clients. Not sure why it's not logging me in. Another option, what I showed you is this is the local client on the machine, but it also supports a fully HTML web client, and it looks like this. It's called rdweb.wvdmicrosoft.com. You can give your own URL with this. And from here, you have access to the same resources as you have from the normal remote desktop client. Okay, another cool feature which I like is a personal VDI. Another personal VDI is if you, for example, have this personal VDI over here. This personal VDI pool has a, oh, 1 second, I need to go to the host pools. Has one host pool in there, but it's the status is unavailable. It's because it's turned off. The cool part of this VDI is because it's a personal desktop, you don't need to really turn it on. If I would like to connect to this. A user can start the app, the server, or basically the remote VDI himself by just clicking to it. That will always go wrong in the demo. Here you see it, and now it's starting the remote PC at the background, which is a really cool feature because what we mentioned before, as long as you turn off your resources in Azure, you will be saving money. And in this way, you can leave all your personal VDIs turned off and turn them on as soon as the user would like to start using it. And the user will be able to start the PC himself. Okay, because of the time, I think I have to go. I will go back to the presentation. We still have a couple of more slides. This was just a look and feel of how does WVD look like? What can you do? Just a couple of features. If you're interested, we can do also a deep dive and go into all the cool, neat features of WVD. But because of the time, I don't think we can do it now. But if you are interested, we can definitely show you more. Okay, going back to the presentation. There was a small demo. So how to get started. And I think my colleague Christian can tell you more about this.
Yeah, thank you. To help you start with WVD, we've created a Kickstarter, which is a 5-day proof of concept, where we can help you quickly to evaluate WVD. We will help you to set up the WVD. We help you configure, publish, desktop, and publish applications. We help you to integrate Office 365 in your WVD environment. So within 5 days, you can check whether WVD benefits your business or benefits your users. So it's a really compact way of evaluating the WVD solution of Microsoft.
Next slide.
Yeah, please. So what always is interesting when you're talking about Microsoft is licensing, because it can be really complicated. Looking at WVD, the WVD service itself is a free service, so it's a platform as a service provision from Azure, which in basic is free. What you need to pay for is access to these environments. So what you normally have to buy is a VDA, which is a virtual desktop access license. But when you, as a company, have bought or are aiming to buy Microsoft 365, the WVD license is part of Microsoft 365. So if you have Microsoft 365 license, it is free to connect to WVD. The only thing you need to pay is the consumption, because you are consuming Azure resources in the backend. That's why you need to pay for it. But if you have Microsoft 365 license in place, it's free to use the WVD service within Azure. And so that is really a benefit of WVD. So, and it's really easy to use it in that way. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
It's up to you, Benno. Oh.
So yeah, the key takeaways of WVD. Windows Virtual Desktop is a cloud-based desktop and app virtualization platforms. It will beneficial. The environment is beneficial for you because you can consume all the Azure services around it. Normally, if you have your own environment on premises, you have to provision those services yourself, like an identity, access, gateways, etc. And because it utilizes these Azure services, it's a really big ecosystem which you can use. Natively, Windows Virtual Desktop is already feature-rich. It's a big discussion. Is Windows Virtual Desktop already enterprise ready? We can tell you, yeah, it is. Of course, you have to look into your personal requirements if it will fit your needs, but we can, of course, help you with that. Windows Virtual Desktop, the ecosystem is flexible. It's a partner system, basically. Additional applications and layering can be added to the Windows Virtual Desktop environment. So it's really flexible, and of course it can reduce your cost. You don't have to do an investment on hardware anymore. If you have a flexible organization with consumption, do you need more consumption in the winter than in the summer? Then you can adjust your environment on top of it, and your cost will go up and down together with your consumption. WVD integrates fully with partner solutions like Citrix, VMware, but also deployment mechanisms like Liquid, Liquidware, etc. It fully integrates with all those solutions. Windows Virtual Desktop is easy to manage. I showed you a couple of options of just publishing an application and to deploy an application, for example. Furthermore, Basefarm is together with Login Consultants your Windows Virtual Desktop knowledge partners, and we can start evaluating if you're interested in WVD. And of course, if you like to do a Kickstarter, we can help you with that as well. So that's the key takeaways of this presentation. Then we go into the Q&A part. We still have 15 minutes left. I see one question here. I will answer that in a bit. If you need more information, you can always contact me. Here are my details, or Christian, or our colleagues in Basefarm. Just contact any of us, and we'll get back to you on your WVD questions. I see there's one question. It's a bit small on my screen. It's about a print solution for WVD. It's not sure how to pronounce your name, but no, 1 second. Where is it? Can WVD? I think it says can it deploy go on Chromebooks, iPads, and Androids? 1 second. Where's the other?
We also had a question about printing. What about printing? Which is a good
printing? Which is really good. Of course, let's answer the first question on printing. Printing is still available because WVD is still a domain joined solution. It's a really common solution to extend your on-premise environment with a VPN or an express route to the cloud, basically to Azure. And that's where WVD runs. So it has a clear path to your print server still on premises. So in most of the cases, if you have legacy print environment, that's the way you can print from your WVD environment to your current printing environment. So that's not really hard because it's still native printing solution. Nevertheless, WVD integrates with the new Azure print services as well, which is a cloud print solution. You can also, that's an extra layer on top of your solution. It's basically a services next to your WVD environment, because also your local clients can use that same printing service from Azure. If you're not looking for a Azure service or a third-party service, you can also integrate with other third-party solutions from any big printing vendor. But again, those are custom solutions, so we need to figure out what the best configuration for that is. But yes, it supports all kinds of printing services. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Benno, we have one extra question. I will answer this one. From where what does the end user start? Is it not possible to buy a PC without an OS license in it? Yeah, it's possible to buy an OS, a PC without a Microsoft operating systems like an Apple MacBook or Google Chrome device. The only thing you need to take care of is to buy a license, a VDA license, because you need to buy the license to get access to the Windows Virtual Desktop, which Microsoft call it the VDA license, and it's a device-based license. So, and if you buy that license, you can you are compliant and you can connect to, for instance, a Windows Published Desktop from your Chromebook of published applications. So it's a license to be compliant. Hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, there are some more questions. The window is a bit small to read the whole question. 1 second. This is a question from JE Web. We have end users traveling before and after COVID all around the world without any network, middle of Africa, etc. They need to have access to MS Office apps, Excel, Word, etc. offline. How does WVD solve this? Will Office apps be cached on the end user laptop in the same way, as long as you don't power it off? Will a copy of Office apps still be available offline, or do you have to be online? Yeah, I can answer this question, of course. WVD is a cloud service. You can only access it if you have a connectivity to the cloud. So if there's no connectivity, then you still have to run some application locally. So yeah, WVD will not solve this issue. WVD is a centralized solution. So if you are traveling to areas where you don't have any internet connectivity, I suggest to just use a cloud-based Intune managed device with a local installation of Office and Word. If you combine that with WVD for your legacy applications, then you only have access to those when you do have connectivity to the internet. I hope that answers your question. So yeah, you still have to be online to access the WVD services.
Do you see any other questions?
Yeah, I do see some other questions. There is one question in Norwegian, but I can't read that fully, so sorry. I need to skip that. My colleagues will get back on that question. There's another question, an on-prem software like Visma Global, is that possible to connect to use with WVD? Yeah, that's the benefit of WVD. If you have Visma or any application that is an on-prem application, like a client server application, that the client needs to have a direct line to the backend, that's where WVD comes into place, because WVD environment runs within the same data center as your backend service, so it still has access to it, and then and the WVD service can publish the application to anywhere in the world, and in a safe way, of course, because it still runs within your own data center or an extension of your data center. Usually WVD is an extension of your data center. I hope that answers your question. I have another one from Kim Arisveen. From where, what does the end user start? It's not possible to buy. Oh, that's, sorry, that's.
We already answered it.
Yeah, we answered that question. The question is already translated. Thank you very much. Can it run from other OS like Android, Linux, and do you run it through a browser, any browser, or how does it look for the end user? Will it run okay in full screen in the browser? Yeah, I can answer that question really easily. It's an HTML5 browser or a client. So on any OS like Android or Linux, if you run a HTML5 browser, you can basically access the environment and you can run it full screen. And how does it look for the end user? It looks basically similar as a normal RDP client. I do have to say, will it run okay? Yes, it runs okay. But it will always run better with a full RDP client, because then you go, otherwise you go over HTML protocol, and the RDP protocol is optimized for better resolutions, video, etc. So yeah, it does run and it runs okay, but it does run better on a native client. And that's the cool part of as well. Microsoft has RDP clients for all the big OSs like Android, Linux, Mac OS, iOS, and Windows, of course. So there are multiple ways of connecting. But it could be the HTML5 client is the one that I always say, okay, this is the one you use if you are working on a machine which is not your machine. If you need to have quick access to your environment, just go to the HTML5 client and you have access. If you want to do full work, then I should suggest to install the local RDP clients, which is available for all the big OS vendors. Hope that answers your question. Next question from Thomas Abelson. Is it possible to use Azure Storage for Passwordless profile, or do you have to use classic Windows file servers? No, yes, or you don't have to use classic Windows file servers anymore. That's the big advantage of Azure, because you're fully in the Azure ecosystem. You can use the storage accounts, so you can basically use Azure storage. You have to create your own Azure storage with a file share on top of it. And of course, you have to do some calculations on the resources you require, because that the bigger the storage account you get, the bigger the IOPS you get from Azure. But you need to be careful. Don't start too big, because that can cost you a lot of money. But yeah, it fully integrates with Passwordless storage. If you need to want to see more on this, I can show you in a different presentation, or we can do that offline. One more thing I would like to tell you about it. The cool part of using Azure storage is you can again use more security layer on top of it, because in Azure storage you can basically filter and firewall it off only for your WVD host, which is really hard to do with the classic Windows file servers. So it even gives you additional benefits on top of this as well. And yeah, it saves you the cost of running a classic Windows file server. Hope that answers your question. I think that was the last question of today. I think we can close the meeting then. If there are any more questions, don't hesitate to contact any of us. And I would like to thank everybody for your attention.
Yeah, we'd like to thank you all, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.